Alarm Radio. This is Why Politics Matters, and I am Bond, James Bond 007, licensed to kill.
You're looking very smart this evening, Imtiaz, I have to say.
Thank you very much. No, so the reason I'm dressed like this is because I've just finished emceeing on a boxing show, and we were talking a little bit about violence and whether it was violence for a reason or violence for no reason. Got a very interesting conversation about boxing as a sport. And that's our segue into the show today. What is our show today about, Alex?
Let me just pick up on that one word you used. Okay, so a lot of the things that you're going to be hearing about today is about police, law, and order. There's three words there that I want to break down.
Okay.
The first one is police, the second one is law, the third one is order. What do they mean, and what do they mean on a sociological basis?
That sounds like a really good outline. I also want to bring out, being a visibly, obviously brown person, my experiences with the police here in this country, and also my experiences with police in Pakistan. So I think you might see it just as a, police and the public. I see it as police and the public firstly, but also police and the brown public, if you know what I mean. Like, we're not the indigenous population and how we deal with the police. So definitely going to bring a few anecdotes, my experiences, and certainly experiences of my peers, and we'll try and bring that out as and when.
And I think that's really important, Imtiaz. I mean, yours and mine, and certainly the people that identify with me, the relationship with the police is going to be very, very different.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. So it'd be really interesting to hear. Maybe just for the benefit of the audience, why are we talking about the police today? What's the topic? I mean, obviously there's been bits in the news. So tell us a little bit about the recent news stories that we've had in the press over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, gladly. Okay, so let's be honest. The police, the people that wear this uniform, they're no different to you and I. They all suffer from the same ailments. They are all just as susceptible as negative pros as what we all will be. In the last couple of weeks, it must have been hard to see what's been going on. The police, especially the Met and their surrounding institutions, have made the headlines several times. PC Kane Haywood. Let's get the names right. Let's actually get these names right. This chap was called Kane Haywood, and this was a gentleman who was asked to look after people by the police force, and this very week, has been charged with a combination of rape and sexual assault charges. Okay, only a few days before that, we had a PC in Plymouth, a chap called Hussein Shahab. He was entrusted with the child safety of people in the school, children in the school, and was found guilty of committing sexual abuses upon those children. And I'm quite sure that everybody listening on the other side of this is well aware of the name David Carrick, a previous police officer who has just pleaded guilty to a total of 24 accounts of sexual assault on the woman that we, all of us as a collective, entrusted him to protect. Okay,
so I'm just going to pause you there. Like, it's one thing just reading these things, but actually hearing your words and hearing what they mean and what they mean for the lives, or certainly the life experience of certain individuals. I mean, these are life-changing events, and we can't just read them out and not even react. There's an emotional response to that.
These are real people that have gone through this in their daily lives, and what it's done, it's destroyed their families. Let's be honest.
Is it David Carrick? I think you mentioned David Carrick.
David Carrick of 26 accounts of rape.
26
police officer.
So David Carrick, from what I've read on the history of that particular case, he had 8, maybe 10 independent allegations of sexual assault
previous to this,
before to him even being caught out. And this is where I start scratching my skull and think, at what point do you say, do you know what, the police as an institution cannot be trusted? Now, you might already be there. I don't know where you are on that scale, but just as a bystander, as an outsider looking in, thinking, how can, like, in any walk of life, if you get one accusation, people start looking at you funny. You get 2 or 3, and people will say, you know what, no smoke without fire.
Absolutely.
And that's it. This guy's got 8.
As a counsellor, Imtiaz, if somebody was to make an accusation against you as a counsellor, you would have to defend that accusation.
Absolutely.
Now, let's go back to the one name that everybody listening to this show will know is Wayne Couzens.
Yeah.
Okay? I mentioned him earlier. This is a chap who, in the middle of the night, a long-time serving police officer, went out in the middle of the night, selected a young lady and piled that young lady into the back of his wagon. He put her in the boot of his car, something which he had been doing time and time again in the employment of his role.
As a police officer. So
As a
he'd
police
been,
officer, that's
he's
what
been
they do.
bundling people into the back of a van as a police officer. Okay.
So you can see the comparison, surely. Yeah, now he's doing it, but he's just not doing it on the job. Yeah?
Yeah.
Where do we draw the line? Where do we ask these questions about these people? How are these people getting these jobs?
Sure.
If it was anywhere else, if it was in a school environment, we would be asking for a total reset of the situation. We would be asking for everybody in there. Here is an issue. These people we are entrusting you with our safety are showing something different to the evidence we're being given. We're being told that they are there for us. And in fact, we're being shown that they are harmful for us. Now, we're already in a situation in the UK where less than 3% of rape allegations go to court. Where is the consciousness? Where is the support for our female citizens?
So just pausing you there. So we've had a comment in from Councillor Nicola Day. Councillor Day says, these facts, as a female, make me so scared of the police and they should be our protection. That's really hit our whole show's topic, nail on the head, basically.
Yeah.
Because they should be our protection. I was having a conversation.
These are the people we entrust with.
Well, these are the people we employ.
Yeah,
they're public
we
servants,
pay
right?
out of our wages every single day. I mean, here we've got everybody facing the cost
voluntarily.
of living crisis.
We voluntarily pay our wages into a central fund that's used to pay the salaries of the people that employ them, the people that recruit them, the people that train them,
Yes.
the people that deploy them, the people that instruct them. So everything they're doing on our pay. So they should be there for our protection. Now, I'll just share this thing with you. So just the other day, I was at one of my cousin's houses for dinner. He's a former police officer. He's Asian. He worked as a police officer in, I think it was at Northampton or Cambridge for a little while, and he's given up. But one of his closest friends was also there, is still a police officer. And I asked the question. I said, you know what? How do you react when stories like this come out? And there was almost like an instinctive need to respond in the defensive. And you don't get that. Like, you don't get that. If you're a teacher and another teacher gets accused of having, I don't know, an affair with a student,
you have a look at who the victims are and how you can best look after them.
You look after the victims, yeah.
Where is your duty of care towards?
Yeah.
Now, we are told that the police are there for a duty of care for all of us in society. I would argue that what you've just evidenced goes against that.
And I completely agree. So I'm probably a little bit naive to this subject, so do educate me throughout this show. But I always feel like, and this is like high level view, I feel like the police are there to maintain order. Okay. And
so now we're getting on to another word. So we touched on those three words. The headline of tonight's show was police, law and order. So let's speak about order now.
Yeah. So, so the police are there to maintain order.
What is order?
Or whose order?
Exactly.
Whose order
so
are they there to maintain?
let's look at the meaning of the word. Now, we're told that the police are there to protect us, but that's not actually even what the word means. If we look at the etymology, the origins of where that word comes from.
Which one? The police. Okay, yeah.
Police. P-O-L. The origins of this word are from politics and policy.
Okay.
Their role is not to look after you. Their role is to instigate and maintain the policy put out by government. Okay. Now, sometimes that policy might be against the working class. Sometimes that policy might be against other demographics, as we have seen recently with refugees, with immigration, with the narrative of hatred which is being spilled out to our communities left, right and centre right now. The police's role in that is to maintain that. To maintain
order and to implement policies as directed by the government. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'm just going to come straight away to something that's just triggered in my mind, and that is police going down council estates during the COVID-19 lockdown period and arresting teenagers who were flouting COVID rules.
These people
at the same time,
please.
providing security for Downing Street events
Yep.
where people were clearly not
Let's
social
be honest, they
distancing.
didn't just supply security, they supplied subterfuge.
Explain.
Everybody that goes into Parliament signs a piece of paper.
Yes.
Yeah? The people that broke those laws that we were all being dictated to by central government, the list is clear. The
Why did it
evidence
take
is
us
clear.
3 months to get that list?
Because they don't want us to have it.
See, this is the thing. So
The only documents which are seriously protected are the ones they don't want you to see.
I'm going to go on to the investigation that was commissioned by the chief inspector at the time. I forget the lady's name.
Cressida Dick,
Was it Cressida Dick?
who had to resign.
She had to resign because she knew she couldn't be impartial, because there were suspicions that she was at the meeting, she was at the social, she was at the birthday party, she was at the event, she was providing security for.
So we're actually dictating how what your evidence here is a serious conflict of interests. A dynamic where those who tell us the laws we have to abide by refuse to follow them themselves.
Absolutely.
Sorry, and please, if anybody can change my opinion on this, that's fascism.
I mean, you're not going to get me arguing. I'm usually played devil's advocate when it comes to things like this, and I think I will in some areas. But with that, I mean, everybody saw that was crystal clear, and I think we've had plenty of people in the media exposing that to some extent or another. But what I will say is, what I'd be really interested in is what our listeners think should be the solution to this. And by solution, I mean, do you think your life would be better with or without the police? And when you ask a question like that, the first thing that comes to mind straight away is security, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think I need the police. I need the police because I need security. But who do you need security from? And
That's the big question.
yeah,
Now, we are told, aren't we, fundamentally, and the thing that we believe the police are there to offer security against is crime.
crime. Yeah. So if you get
Am I
if you
right?
get if you get burgled, if you get attacked, if you get mugged, if you so on, all these things, the police should be protecting you.
Okay. So,
Go on. Did I set you up well there?
yeah, you did perfectly.
Go on.
My simple question is, do the police stop those crimes from happening then?
No.
Then, therefore, they're not protecting you from those crimes.
So, again, anecdotal, but I spoke to a former police officer who said, when we get radioed that there's a burglary in progress, we deliberately arrive after it's concluded so we have less paperwork to fill in.
I've been in this situation myself.
Yeah.
I don't speak about this place just coming from anecdotal data and things that I
Sure.
look at from an academic place. I am working class. I was brought up in Glasgow. I've spent a lot of time in Peterborough, and I have met these situations where you have to call on the police because you're seriously scared for your life.
Sure.
Okay? We probably have a Labour councillor, hopefully listening here, the leader of the Labour Party, actually, Shaz Nawaz, who will understand the relationship I had with him in the management of Respace, or the New England project.
Okay.
In a situation there, we ran that place as somewhere that offered assistance to homeless. We understood the dynamics that we were following. And with these things, you will come into conflict with people.
Sure.
I've been in a situation where I've had to phone the police because I've got somebody with a knife on me, Imtiaz.
Wow.
Yeah. Where I've had to protect other people as well that
Sure.
were in my care from this person waving a knife. And the police have turned round, and when we've told them we've managed to put a door between us, but we're very scared in this room, they've responded, well, you're safe then, aren't you?
Wow. That's horrific. That's absolutely horrific.
And I won't be the only person. There will be numerous people. And let's actually take this away. I've also been in the situation where I've been walking by B&M in town, where a young girl has been stopped for shoplifting and armed police have arrived on the scene. Okay? There was a situation back in 2018 where 16 armed police officers who just happened to be on the scene in Peterborough District arrived because of one girl who had shoplifted out of B&M stores.
That is incredible. Like, that is just disgusting. That is absolutely disgusting.
Just like to add, she was also stealing food.
And that just makes it all the worse. It's just worse. It's so much worse. Like, I don't even know where to begin with. I can't even play
where
devil's
do you start?
advocate. I genuinely
Where do you
can't,
start?
because I'd love to say, look, well, thieving's not right, is it? I'd love to say that,
Of course
but
it's not, but
she's
why,
stealing
and
food.
this is where
And
it comes down to a bigger question, doesn't it? And it goes back to what I was just saying. The police do not stop crime. These people, if people are stealing food, they're stealing food because they're hungry.
yeah,
So therefore, an increase in police resources, an increase in police infrastructure doesn't stop people being hungry, does it?
absolutely. I want to read out this comment from Colin Watson. Colin, thanks for listening and thanks for the comment. Colin says, there has to be a place for policing. The question is who and how it's done. How do we stop these public servants being so separate from society in general? It shouldn't be them and us. Would it not be possible to have a policing service that we all at some point in our lives contribute to? A community service conscription type process? Is this a totally naive suggestion?
Absolutely not, Colin. Actually, it makes a very good suggestion. I'd actually take it a little bit further, however, and I would argue that before we can do any of that, we need to ask the question is, what is the role of a police service?
Okay.
Right now, and I'm going to go back to what I just said a little minute ago, right now the public are in the disposition that the police service stop crime. Let's be honest, they don't. You call
really
the police
don't. They
after
really don't.
you've been burgled. You call the police after you've been assaulted.
So one thing I'm going to challenge you on is police presence, visible police presence. So I know for a fact that we had significantly higher visible police presence in the past than we do now.
Absolutely.
And I mean, that might just be because of the cuts by the government, reduction in resources or more paperwork that they have to do, whatever. But we don't get bobbies on the beat. When I was younger, I knew my local police officer. I'd see him, I'd bump into him, I'd speak to him. He was
There
nice.
was a velocity of information that happened.
There's lots and lots going on. He used to come into the youth clubs. He used to talk to us there.
Yep.
He used to speak to, we knew him. If there was a fight, he'd be
But let's
there.
be honest,
and-
Imtiaz, it wasn't just your police officer.
Go on.
It was your teacher. It was your community leaders. We all had a smaller community back then. Nowadays, what you've got is you've got teachers that don't live in the area that they're teaching.
Yeah,
You've got police officers that do not police the area that they live in.
sure.
You've got politicians that represent areas that they don't even live in the same area as the
No way.
electorate.
Is that true?
You know this
That
is
can't
true,
be true. That
Imtiaz,
can't be
yeah?
true. No way.
Now, you're not one of them, but
Thankfully.
there's certainly plenty of them. You're Wayne Fitzgerald, even Paul Bristol, for crying
I just
out
wanna-
loud,
I just wanna-
is not a Peterborian
I just
by
wanna pull it
any
back.
extent of the meaning.
But do you agree that a visible police presence discourages crime?
No.
You don't. Okay.
I would argue
That's interesting.
that a visible police presence pushes the people that want to create crime into another area where there is not a visible police presence.
So you're saying the factors that impact on the number of crimes committed are more social
Why do people commit crime in the first place?
necessity more often than not.
Thank you. So if you have something that you're a necessity for and you go into an area and you find out that you cannot meet that necessity, will you not just go to another area?
But I just think like the incentive, sorry, not the disincentive, the absence of a disincentive.
But the motivation is still there, Imtiaz.
The motivate, but then do you not need the opportunity? You need the motivation and the opportunity, right?
And that's where we start talking about different things.
Okay.
So what you're talking about by having the police presence is you've removed the opportunity.
Yes.
What have
Yes,
you done
exactly
about,
that.
What have you done about the motivation?
Nothing. But it's a start, right? It's a start.
But you still have
yeah.
this person who cannot meet their immediate needs.
So
Through whatever mean, and let's have a look at what we're actually facing there. We're facing a cost of living crisis where in some parts of our city,
Yeah.
3 in 5 children face food insecurity.
Yeah.
Now, let's just imagine, I'm not thankfully, you're not thankfully, but there are people that might be listening to the show tonight, and there are certainly people that live in our city tonight
I know this.
who
Yeah.
are struggling to feed their children.
Sure.
If they steal bread to feed their child, are they a criminal? And if you increase the police presence, are you really stopping that need for them to steal to feed
So
their child?
the example I was going to give was there was a spate of robberies on elderly women where their purses were being snatched by young teenagers who, maybe went off and spent the money on drugs or drink or whatever. That's like an antisocial behavior type thing. And I just feel like, and this is, I know it's a very specific thing, but this is what I had in mind. with a police presence, the elderly lady would be feeling safer going down to get her shopping with her handbag, and the hooded hoodlum youngster would be less likely to mug her in the high street. Is all I'm saying. And
Absolutely,
I'm not saying,
and you're quite right.
and I'm not saying that the social barriers and the social challenges that this youngster has disappear as a result of a police presence. All I'm saying is the opportunity for that youngster to commit that particular crime on that vulnerable individual is reduced.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I wish the police worked that way. But I'm sure there's people out there that have been subjected to having their tools that they rely on a daily basis stolen out of their van, that
Sure.
have rung the police, that have caught these individuals on camera, and for the normal Joe Blogs on the street, the police don't turn up.
Yeah.
Okay, now if we were running a store in the middle of town and we received just 10% of the crime that some of our people living in the suburbs of city
Sure.
face, the police would, as I've already said, the police would be there with arms. So here it comes into, who are the police there to protect? You've brought up some great points there, Imtiaz, about the people on the street, the normal people, working families, and people looking after their home. And I already know, without even pulling on the anecdotal evidence, there will be hundreds of people out there tonight that don't realise the rationale on that have called the police and they haven't turned up.
Give us a call, guys. Give us a call if you're listening to this show and you've been a victim of a crime and you felt that the police have let you down. Give us a call. It's 01733 602 133. That's 01733 602 133. We are on Facebook and we are taking comments. I've had a few comments that I want to read out, and then I've been prompted to remember Sarah Everard, who I'm going to be talking about.
Whose name should always be remembered. That is a name that should be held up in regard.
Absolutely. Faisal Mahmood says educational facilities such as youth clubs can help reduce crime. I think he's touching on what you're saying about...
Absolutely. And Faisal, this should. But what has happened to our youth clubs over the past 2 decades?
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in Peterborough. I'm 45 now. I grew up in Peterborough as a 16-year-old, and I'm going to be totally honest with you. I could go to a different youth club every single night of the week.
I remember Hobson's, I remember Spinneys, I remember Gladstone Park Community Centre.
Central, the Barn.
Yeah.
There was hundreds of them. You're a similar age to me, Imtiaz, but they don't exist anymore. They have now been written into the ages of nostalgia.
Yeah, Faisal says, I agree with Alex. Crime is not always, although crime is not always for a necessity, for example, sex-related crimes, organised crimes such as drug dealing and cyber crime.
I'm going to be honest with you, and yes, I will criticise this a little bit, but let's be honest, but even some of them drug crimes, how much of it is actually based upon the use of the drug or the prohibition of the drug?
Yeah, that's a different topic, but it's a good point. I think it's a good point.
Maybe it's something else we can have another show on.
I think so, yeah. Councillor Nicola Day comes back again with another comment. Who are the real criminals? Tory MPs who tax dodge millions, or those that steal a piece of bread? Just on that one, Nadeem Zahawi. Nadeem Zahawi.
Yeah.
Right. He's accidentally slip of the tongue, slip of mind, accidentally failed to disclose some of his income in his tax return.
Well, in order for him to fail to disclose that, he had to set up 2 filter points.
Accidentally.
One of them being a shell company.
Accidentally.
But he's still managing to play the claim that it was accidental.
Okay, so somebody said a single...
If you were a single mum...
A single mum claiming house benefit...
now for doing the same crime.
So... I've known of single mums getting a criminal sentence off the back of claiming housing benefit as a single mum whilst living with their partner. That's happened. I've heard of stories of people claiming to live in an address so they get admission to a better school, going to jail as a result of...
These are people in the bottom economic values.
Absolutely.
We're actually balancing this off against somebody that earns millions and millions of pounds a year, has serious financial interests, and didn't need that money, and he's stealing it off the electorate. That's what it boils down to.
Colin Watson's come back and said, yes, I agree, Alex. It should not be a detached establishment enforcer, but a police force which is a part of the community that is engaged with the issues facing a particular community, working with teachers, youth workers, community groups. Sadly, such investment in communities is a long way away, hence all the underlying problems that work against the chance of community safety and cohesion.
Thank you, Colin. And I couldn't agree with you more. And I think actually the reason why that doesn't happen is actually based around the narratives and the way that we look at things. Colin, I know you and me have spoke before about vertical hierarchies. we live in a society that's based on that, we can learn so much from each other. And I would argue that actually the answer to all this is to move away from vertical to horizontal.
So we were at a People's Assembly meeting on Friday night talking about climate change and the class struggle. And one of the things that really stood out for me there was the need for community. And it almost feels like moving away from community is almost like the cause of all of our problems. And getting back to community is a surefire way of dealing with a number of problems.
Engaging
not least climate
with each other, understanding each other's needs on a basic level, and trying to meet them for one another.
Yeah, we're going to head into a break. Just before we do, I want to read from Faisal Mahmood. He says, I feel in Peterborough we have a good relationship with the police as a community, especially via community support officers. I'm going to challenge that, Faisal. We will come back. We're going to go into a break, but I don't think I necessarily agree. That's the first half of the show gone.
I'm going to ask you why when we come back.
Absolutely. We'll be back in about 4 minutes, guys. Don't go away.
You're listening to Salam Radio, and it's now time for Isha Azan. This Azan is sponsored by Park Foods. Come and see the difference.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم وبارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم رب هذه الدعوة التامة والصلاة القائمة آت محمدا الوسيلة والفضيلة وابعثه مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته. اللهم آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم بك نحيا وبك نموت وإليك المصير. رضينا بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم نبيا ورسولا.
Visit our website, salamradio.co.uk.
This is 106.2 FM. We're here on Salam Radio, and you're back listening to us on Why Politics Matters. We've got a really interesting topic today. I thought it was going to be a little bit dry, but there's so many layers to this. The topic is the police, law and order. And we've had half the show, and we've hardly, even picked on the surface of this. But I just want to pick up where we left off at the back end of the first half, and that was Faisal's comment about, I feel in Peterborough we have a good relationship with the police as a community, especially via community support officers. Now, I want to challenge that because I've had a number of experiences with the police, and I feel like if we play the game they want us to play, they're very, very happy with us. And we've got community liaison officers, and we've got people in our mosques that deal with the police, and they come in and speak to them. And the big issue I had was around the EDL march in Peterborough, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So the EDL have marched in a number of cities, and you've got the anti-fascists going out against the EDL. And there's been, and everybody's got the right to protest, but the police have preempted any potential anti-fascist movement emanating from the mosques by coming in and speaking to us and saying, stay out of town, stay out of trouble. How do you feel about that?
Right. So this is actually something I've got a little bit of experience from.
I know,
On several sides of the coin. As a younger man, I was very much indoctrinated with the working class white right-wing narrative.
Okay,
I'll be totally honest with you. In the original time, the first time I remember the EDL coming to Peterborough was, I think, 2003. They were clinging on to the fall of the towers and the hatred that had been permeated.
Was that the EDL or was that the BNP?
Oh,
I think it might have been pre-EDL. That was,
yeah.
Or was it the National Front?
I think it was the NF. Actually,
Yeah,
I think
it might
right.
be the NF.
Now, I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of the people that I didn't myself, but a lot of the white working class people I were friends with at the time,
Sure.
joined that rally.
Okay.
And I apologise to all my listeners because at the time I actually understood why. Now, thankfully, I'm a little bit older now. I can pull myself out of this and I can question the things that I once believed and look
Sure.
at why I was asked to believe them.
Sure.
And it's not good. None of it's good. And a lot of these things still carry on today. The things which cause these things to happen are lack of truth, or lack of understanding, or lack of friendship and of love. It's very, very easy to make somebody an enemy.
Yeah. Just going back to my point, though. So, I'm glad you got that out there. But just going back to my point, like I know for a fact, there are community leaders within our community who, if they were so inclined, could rile up the youngsters. And I'm tempted to put myself in that category as well.
That's very easy.
Could rile up the youngsters and say, look, these racists are coming to your town and they're questioning your right to be in your town. And they're coming from all around the country. What are you going to do? Are you going to stay at home? Or are you going to go out there and you're going to show a united front? And not just young Asian lads, but I'm saying go up with your black brothers and with your brown brothers and sisters and with your white brothers and sisters and people who are just absolutely against the fascist ideologies that these groups perpetuate.
And that's where it needs to lie. This understanding of standing against this right wing increase is beyond demographic, ethnicity,
absolutely
race.
It's like when they talk about the Million Man March. The Million Man March was 50% black, 50% white. You couldn't have the Million Man March back in Martin Luther King days if it was just the black people rising up.
Where does this argument come from?
I don't know.
It's new. In fact, in the history of humankind, the whole race ideology only came into creation as a result of capitalism, as a result of colonization, of the white man wanting to segregate and label everything that he came across without actually realizing the beautiful things they shared.
Yeah, so we've had a number of conversations about the police over a number of years as a country, and I remember the last time we had this conversation was the Sarah Everard case, And that wasn't too long ago. That was about 2 years ago, I think it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't very long ago at all.
Just pre-lockdown. I think it was
3 years ago,
back
maybe,
end of
yeah.
2019, weren't thereabouts.
So Sarah Everard, for people who don't know, was a lady who was sexually assaulted, and ultimately murdered by a police officer. And women up and down...
Wayne Cousins was his name.
Yeah, and women up and down the country decided to hold a vigil for Sarah Everard. A peaceful vigil, lighting a candle, and just remembering the beautiful life that we lost at the hand of an oppressor.
And this is a really good important point.
Yeah, and what did the police do?
Well, they arrested the people holding a vigil. They came in, boots and brass, very aggressive, pinned women on the floor.
We had riot police.
Yeah.
Prompting
they went
a riot.
In with shields and masks because they dared show a vigil against somebody who had been abused, raped and murdered by one of their own.
One of their own.
Who the hell are they to do that to those women? And they also then asked the next day for those same women that have been subjected to abuse, to sexual abuse, to rape, to entrust in them with the details to see it through.
Absolutely.
How can they possibly? This needs sorting out. I mean, this is a real problem.
It
As
really
a
is.
sociological and a psychological problem, how can we, our young girls that are growing up in society today, who are watching this happen on the landscape, what are we filling their heads with?
What about the partners of male police officers who suffer domestic abuse? Where do they go? And there's many cases
It's a
of that.
really interesting conversation, actually, and I don't know if we'll be able to tap it onto tonight, but there's
Do they
actually
call the
data,
police?
Well, there's data to show that a very large percentage of all females reporting domestic abuse are actually linked to police officers.
Okay.
There's some data out there, and you can Google this yourself. The words I would ask you to type in are 40% of UK police officers. And what you'll find out is that out of all domestic abuse reports, a large percentage have some link to current serving police officers.
And they feel like they can get away with it. They feel like
they
they've
wrap
either
up, don't they?
Yeah, they've got the protection. I mean, if you're going to report it, one
Wayne
of my mates is going to pick it
Cousins
up.
had been known as Mr. Rapey among his friends in
Oh
the
my
force for a
God.
number of months
That's
before
disgusting.
he was finally attached.
That's
Now, I'm
absolutely
ever so
disgusting.
sorry, but if you sit down with somebody who is attached with these labels, you need to look at your own integrity, don't you?
I'm bringing it into the teaching sphere. Imagine you're a teacher and you've got a fellow teacher who's known as Mr. Pedo.
Surely, if you're a good teacher, you'd be asking why.
Absolutely, you would. Absolutely, you would. And this is what I'm saying. This is the thing that is just absolutely.
Why don't they end the police? And these are questions that need to be asked. Why are the police officers not highlighting these other people?
Vessel asks a really good question. I want to bring you on to that just before I do. Colin Watson says there's always going to be differences between the individual police officers and the force as a whole. There'll be many police officers who are well motivated. It's the culture of the force. And I know you wanted to talk about this. I want to bring you in on that in a
Absolutely.
second. Getting rid of a bad apple is like saying get rid of the Tory government and our problems will be solved. It's not that simple, sadly. So
Agreed, it's not that simple, okay, but there are some psychological issues which come on.
talk about the uniform.
When you put on a uniform and you're talking about mass people putting on a uniform, what actually you end up is you're no longer a human being. You're this entity that wears a uniform. Okay? We've all had it before. I'm sure there's activists out there that have approached the police
Yeah.
and they've said, no, we're just doing our job.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Where do you segregate that? Where does the definition come in? Surely you're an individual still. And what we're seeing is these individuals, when they take off the uniform, they abuse the public.
Do you remember that cost of living crisis march that we went on in London? Police everywhere, right?
Yeah.
There was lots of really fun banners floating about. I had a particularly good banner. I thought it was quite funny. I can't remember what it was now, but it was really funny, I thought. And I offered it to a police officer. And she smiled and she said, I'd love to hold it, but we're not allowed to. And I was going to take a photo in front of a couple of police holding one of those banners. And she said, no, absolutely not. We can't be in a photo.
Perfect
even though
example.
we'd love to.
However,
so this is their political leanings, but
so
they're
when
wearing
they're
the
dealing
uniform.
with us en masse,
Yeah.
they want to play the uniform. We are all the same. Yeah? There is no segregation between us. When you speak to one of us, you speak to us all.
Yes.
However, when it comes down to these separate instigations of them abusing us, they want us to look at them as individuals.
Yeah. Exactly that.
I'm really sorry, but I don't see the rationale between the two. Either you work as a force, as one, or you're individuals working within that force.
Yeah.
You don't have it two ways. You can't have it both ways.
I was going to ask you Faisal's question, but it was basically the same kind of question. He said, in this case, do you think it's individual officers that are the problem rather than the institution as a whole? We're flying through our show. You've kind of answered that. And
I'm going to ask it.
Yeah,
Sorry,
go on.
Faz, my simple response to this would be, if you sit down with a racist but do not call out their racism whilst you know that they're racist, what is your role in facilitating their racism?
So, if I'm silent in the face of oppression, I'm with the oppressor.
Absolutely.
Is what Desmond Tutu said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or another way of putting it is that the only thing that allows evil to happen is good people being quiet.
Yeah, spot on. Absolutely brilliant. So, my experience with the police, I was... I'm going to tell you two stories. Number one,
Yeah, please.
I was 13 years old. I'm actually... Thinking back on it now, I think I'm actually still suffering from the trauma of what happened. I was 13 years old, standing around a corner with a bunch of mates. This is my own corner. We used to hang around Hobson's, Cromwell Road, Cobden Street, Gladstone Street. That's where we used to hang around.
I know what you mean.
I know what you mean.
Just by the Lamerick Centre you're talking here,
exactly
aren't you?
that, yeah. So we used to hang around there all the time. And a cop car drove past, saw us, went round the block, drove again, stopped, and put us up against a wall and searched us. 13 years old.
Why do you feel he done that?
Power. Nothing other than power.
Didn't like
Just
the cut of your jib?
Well, absolutely. We're brown kids and we're having a bit of fun. We're having we're not disturbing anyone. We know all of our neighbours. We're a small community. Everybody knows everybody. We're not committing any crime. We're just hanging about because we've got nothing to do, right?
To the community.
No threat to anyone, not
So
committing
actually
crime.
what you've got here is police wanting to put you back in your lane.
Exactly that. Yeah, listen here, Sonny Jim. We're the police and we run things
and I'm
around
guessing
here.
that you feel that wouldn't have happened if you were white.
So this is the interesting thing. I asked my friends, and we were just like, again, this is when police were headlines, and I was asking my friends, I was like, how many of you guys have been pulled over whilst driving? All right. And there was like, I drive a 7-seater. There was 6 of us in the car, and all of us said, yeah, of course we have. And I was like, you ask a group of 6 white friends, 6 middle-class white friends, if they've ever been pulled over. And it's like it never, ever happens.
There's a disparity in the data, isn't there?
I've been pulled over myself. I've been pulled
And
over
the only
at least 10 times I've been
Absolutely.
pulled over.
And you're quite right. If you have this conversation amongst your white friends, if I could take you to people I've grown up with that have never experienced what you've experienced.
Exactly.
Imtiaz.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the difference? There's only one thing, isn't there?
There's only one thing. There's only one thing.
Now this brings it interesting, and let's really bring it back to what gives them the power over us. We're fearful of the police. When we get pulled over in those situations, there's a different thing that goes through our hands. Probably for me as a white person, is what it is you. I'm sorry, as a brown person.
Sure.
Yeah. Everything they hinge their power on is through a threat of violence to you. Okay?
So I know in that particular situation I described, I mean, I was only 13, but I had 2 or 3 mates with me. There was 2 officers. I know if we resisted, we'd be roughed up. And if we
and
arrested,
maybe.
and if we got out of hand, they would have called back up and another 4 or 6 would turn up, and they wouldn't be far away. They would be pretty close. And then they would come and they would give us a good bit of treatment, take us into a cell, not worry about the fact that we're 13 years old, not worry about our rights.
Now, whether you're right or wrong in your presumptions, you're dictating this because that is what history has told you happens.
Oh, completely. Yeah. I'm not oblivious to what's happening around me. Yeah.
Now, I'm going to ask you. Sorry,
go for it. No. I'm happy to.
Privileged position as a white guy here, and this is quite different.
Yeah.
What makes you feel that that's what would happen?
Just the knowledge of what's happened to other people. You hear stories, don't you? You hear stories
and
about.
do you feel that my story would be different?
Oh, 100%.
There you go.
Absolutely, 100%.
Now, as white people, we can keep on ignoring this, or we can start facing it. But the problem is on us.
I can't imagine. And okay, so there is that brown white, but I have to stress, a lot of it is to do with class, because I'm sure in
But
the
that's what perpetuates the need for that.
yeah, because I'm sure in the working class areas, in the council estates in Westwood and so on, I'm sure police will be doing something very, very similar.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we even spoke about it earlier, didn't we, about the working class being pulled up where the middle class aren't. I
Yeah.
mean, that's actually where we started off on the show, isn't it, to a certain degree?
I'm just going to read a comment before you go on. Just going
Please.
to read a comment. So I've had another text in from Councillor Nicola Day saying that the Peterborough Rape Crisis Centre dealt with over 1,400 cases, and there were only ones that they were the only ones that were reported. How can we trust the police to treat us with compassion when some of their officers have acted so awfully? Now, this is, I've had to read this second time. Councillor Day says the Peterborough Rape Crisis Centre, the Peterborough Rape Crisis, not the National Rape
So
Crisis
this is
Centre.
local.
1,400? Are you kidding me? That's an incredibly large number for a city the size of Peterborough. 200,000 residents in total. 1,400 rape cases. Are you mad? That is so high.
The only thing that allows it to happen is actually because people don't know about these figures. Yeah?
It's unbelievable.
The truth is I'm going to be totally honest with everybody listening.
Go
What
on.
this, for me, evidences is that for our women who have been abused, cannot trust our police. How can you ask somebody who has been abused to seek help from an abuser?
No, you can't. Absolutely, you can't. So look, I mean, we're rapidly running out of time, and I just want to bring it back to one thing, and that is what is the viable? Move the Overton window on this situation
Yeah,
for us,
and
please,
let's.
and
Okay.
really just put something out there. So we've all okay. I agree with you.
Well, I'm going to bring it back to the beginning. And I think the point that we started off with is do the police stop crime?
Right. So we've established no.
No, they don't.
No.
What they do is they turn up after the point. In fact, the police are the enemy to the working class.
Yeah.
Yeah? There is only limited resources on this planet. Currently, even in our city, what we're seeing is the wealth divide growing. We're seeing stagnant wages. We're seeing the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer. What that actually dictates is a limit on the resources we all have to share.
Yeah.
And if history shows us one thing, if studying people in desperate situations shows us one thing, it is that when we have limited resources,
It's carnage.
we will become primal and we will fight over them.
It will be absolute carnage. Yeah. Yeah, I get that. So people like Jeff Bezos holding on to 100 and whatever it is billion dollars is not a good thing for the planet.
No, it's not. And all the police can do is increase the authoritarianism on how people react to indifference and lack of equality. But the lack of equality and difference will always be the instigator and the cause of crime in our society.
So I'm sure our listeners are going to be thinking, doesn't matter what Imtiaz says, Alex always brings it back to bring down capitalism. But in this case,
We're competing against each other.
It literally-
Capitalism makes us compete against each other. And as we now get to what I would argue is late stage capitalism, resources are running dry. Climate change is becoming more of an essence, and we all realise that our actual collective future is more tied into each other.
yeah.
We can either engage with that and come together, or we can keep fighting over these limited resources.
So Colin has just mistaken you for the European MP Alex Mayer, but he has said good
I'll
summing up.
take that as a quote.
Sorry, that was Facebook. Colin said, there's so much to unpick and it can't be done quickly. So where to start? Surely the purpose of the police has to be reframed. A community police force, more officers, and they need to have as their priority the building of relationships within communities, openly and transparently embedded in communities. I love that. That's brilliant, Colin. Thank you.
Absolutely. I'd ask anybody that's having a look into this to check out a
Go on.
philosophy called sociocracy.
Sociocracy.
Sociocracy, okay? What we're talking is something that is actually an alternative to democracy. Whereas democracy tells us that we have to elect leaders, sociocracy tells us that we implement these things ourselves.
Sure.
Currently, I'm going to go back to that etymology of the police. Currently, their diktat, their mission comes from those that have power over us. Colin, you've touched on a great thing there, and maybe actually what has to happen is they need to be brought back into the community and take their mission from us, rather than people that already have an abundance of power over us.
And I also like his suggestion of conscription. You know, the fact that, you know, like we have like Duke of Edinburgh awards.
And do you mean
for example,
this is conscription into the police force, isn't
into
it?
the police force from
Absolutely.
the community?
Yeah, if
so
it's a
why don't I?
community-led organisation,
Yeah.
yes. If it's an authority-led organisation, hell no.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm studying for a degree at university and I want to get some extra credits, I should be able to do 4 to 6 hours of policing, community policing.
But shouldn't this
within-
community policing be social work?
Absolutely should. Of course
Yeah.
it should.
I mean, let's go back actually to pre-COVID, where there was a little bit of some investigation done, and what we've actually shown is some of you out there might remember that we used to have psychiatric social nurses.
I can't remember that. But
Okay, well, these were mental health professionals
yeah.
that worked in the community. Now, because of the cutbacks to the NHS and through the Tory-led stealth privatisation, this is a service that's no longer available to the community. But research does show that one single CPN, one single community psychiatric nurse, can cut crime in an area, if strategically placed, more than 5 officers by the police can.
That's incredible. That's completely
Happy
news
to
to us.
share that
really.
research with anybody that wants the links.
And maybe put it onto the comments
Yeah,
of this
we'll do
video.
later, yeah.
Faisal Mahmood shares a story. He says, as a teenager and until I was around 30 years old, I got pulled over many times too, to see if I had a valid insurance or license. I do feel it was most likely that they thought they will get me for something. I'm sure it happened to many other agents. I think nowadays they can detect that using ANPR systems. So maybe due to that, I haven't experienced it since. Maybe you just don't fit the demographic, Faisal, because you're now 40 odd years old. You know, you drive a sensible car. You're not
Or
driving.
maybe it is because of ANPR, and actually what had happened before was that racial profiling.
Yeah, absolutely that.
And
Colin-
the simple reason to say that is there any white people that can come back and say that they got pulled over so much just for the check of their license?
Yeah, Colin, you're listening in and commenting. Can you just share with us how many times you've been pulled over for license and registration or licensed insurance? Colin says, great point about the mental health, the CPNs. That really is. I think that's an eye-opener because it says you invest money in the right areas and you get the desired outcome. But do they want the desired outcome?
No, they don't. And,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I feel I'm trying to promote here and trying to get across to people is that the police don't stop crime. What stops crime is giving people self-autonomy, giving people the ability to feel that there are opportunities out there in the society that they have access to increase their situation. As soon as you stop feeling people that we give them a community where they can do it themselves,
Yeah.
they will start fighting for resources. And that's human nature, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so many things, and there's so many things that really frustrate you with the police. Why does it sound? I was just going to say, why is it such a radical suggestion when somebody? Because it was talking after the murder of George Floyd, there was talk about defunding the police.
Yeah.
And why was that seen as such a radical demand?
Well, what does it mean?
It means stop funding the police. Let's reduce the budgets.
But why? So actually, the defund the police movement is based on the understanding that police do not stop crime.
Yeah.
Okay, it's based on the understanding or asking the question, what do you want for your communities? Do you want more authoritarianism, where people are still to stay in a line? Or do you want more understanding where we meet people's needs?
Are you familiar with the film series The Purge?
Yeah.
Right. That's what people fear, don't they? They fear like, you know what, we're going to defund the police, and next thing you know, we'll have the purge. We'll have people just going around taking what they want, doing what they want. And that's absolutely not human nature, is it? It's not. Nobody wants that kind of...
Really not.
Yeah, I mean, people flee
It's
from wars,
fetishism.
right? Yeah, it
The
really
purge
is.
is fetishism.
Yeah.
It's right-wing fetishism. The truth is that when people come together and form bonds and understandings, we can't escape them.
So that's used as a way to talk down the defunding of the police. But do you think that's something that we could maybe get a political movement around here in the UK?
Well,
Is that like...
Absolutely, I
Do you
do.
think-
I do. But it needs to come back to this understanding of what the police are and what their role is, and then realising that actually it's a little bit defunct on a sociological level.
Yeah, maybe I haven't gone on record and said this, but I agree with you. I agree that the police do not reduce the incident of crime.
No.
They absolutely react to the crime. They help in getting a criminal report and a crime registration number and all those kinds of things.
What
Yeah,
the crime is.
Yeah.
If it's murder, they haven't stopped the murder. The police are called
after the murder. Yeah, exactly. And so I completely agree with you on that. The questions then become, in the absence of the police, do we miss something? What are we missing, and what do we need to replace it with?
Great question.
Yeah.
Great question. And these are things that we should be discussing
Yeah.
openly.
Yeah.
What are the other alternatives?
What could we have instead of a police force?
Absolutely.
We didn't even talk, so we're almost out of time. We didn't even talk about the origins of the police force, the fact that the police force were the first civilian army, basically, that went into
we could go into Ireland and everything, yeah.
And-
but I just want to just ask one thing. I just want to go right back, okay? Before the police, if somebody stole in a village, they were put in the stocks.
I'm going to have to interrupt you.
They were faced by
really sorry.
human humiliation, and that would stop them stealing again.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
It's all right. Linda Watson just commented. My favorite.
Linda.
Linda's my favorite. I love her comments. The day my mixed race grandson passed his driving test, he went out for his first drive on his own around Warrington at 5 p.m. The police stopped him and breathalyzed him. He was really shaken up. If that doesn't put a full
you
stop
need to
on it.
understand what that psychological level is. What did they do to that child, and what was the
Guys,
lasting effects?
we're all out of time. Thank you so much for taking part. We'll be
Thank
back
you very
again
much.
next week.
Salam
Thank
alaikum.
you. Wa alaikum salam.
Stay tuned to Salam Radio after this short ad break.
Worried your tenants could stop paying their rent during this